They staged the coup against Klaus, and it was
Oh,
a
really?
coup. Oh yeah, I mean, look, I have very good sources inside WEF.
Okay.
Their attendance in January was down some 20 to 25%, and um, his "you'll own nothing and be happy" bullshit has caused a lot of people to question what's going on, and they hate the WEF. So they decided to jettison him.
You're watching Capital Cause, and my name is Danny. And today's guest is legendary Martin Armstrong, a huge fan favorite on the channel. Marty, thank you so much for coming back on the show, my friend.
Well, thank you for inviting me, Danny.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure having you on, Marty. Let's just dive right in here. What is occupying your radar screen at the moment? What do you think is the most important thing that should be front and center for investors and just people in general right now, whether it relates to the markets, geopolitics, etc.?
I would have to say it is the geopolitics in Europe mainly.
Okay.
But look, we do have three hot spots. You got the Middle East going crazy. You got Pakistan, India. It since we deal globally, it just appears to me whatever grudge used to exist between two places, it's all like kind of resurfacing. It's almost like a flu or a contagion, and it's just popping its head up everywhere. I mean, even in Germany, Bavaria was Catholic. The North Prussia was Protestant. And they still celebrate in Bavaria winning the war against Prussia. It's a holiday. So I mean, these things are not forgotten. In Greece, you're looking at they were giving a few jets from the U.S. and they actually publicly said, "Oh, now we can do a sneak attack on Turkey." I mean, they're two NATO countries.
Really?
That's why I said Ukraine, forget it. There is zero chance of ever getting a lasting peace. I mean, we did a conference in Greece, and one of our employees from Kiev, she came over, refused to fly back the quickest way because it stopped in Moscow. I said, it's just a stopover. You'll be there in an hour. Nope. The hatred in Kiev of Russians is just, it's off the charts, really. You brought a bottle of Russian vodka, you'll be lucky if they don't smash it over your head if you went to dinner in Kiev. And there's no discussion. I tried to say, do you realize that it was a Ukrainian that actually took your food, not a Russian? Stalin wasn't a Russian. He was from Georgia, and his right-hand man was Kaganovich, who was a Jewish guy who most people objectively think that he took the food from Ukraine as retribution because they had killed Jews. And he was born in Kiev and from there. So he told Stalin to take the food from Ukraine as a payback. I mean, it's, yet they hate Russians. Then you go to Moscow and they are debating who's actually Russian,
Yeah.
It is definitely crazy.
And this kind of pushes back on the West's narrative that Russia wants to take all of Ukraine, because if they take all of Ukraine, everything west of Kiev, I mean, you're dealing with non-Russian speakers on that side of the fence, and Catholic, and the Orthodox Christian Russian speakers are on the east side of Kiev. It would be a complete headache having to deal with uprisings in the West and with all this stuff if Putin were to take all of Ukraine.
he never wanted it. I mean, the criticism in Moscow, from my Russian sources, is that they criticize him that he should have went in and taken all of Ukraine as we did to Iraq, and this thing would have been over in 3 or 4 weeks. And he didn't. He was just there. It was a special operation to protect the Russians that are in the Donbass and Crimea. I mean, there are no Ukrainians there, period. Crimea, 15% of the population are still Mongols from the invasion, in 1240 AD. The rest are Russians. They speak Russian there. They're not Ukrainian. And what started this whole thing, you can Google it up. As soon as the revolution took place in Odessa, they staged a massacre of Russians. They were killing them on the street. They fled into the Trade Center building. They set it on fire and burned them alive. That's then the Donbass said, "Hey, we're separating," and they want to be a part of Ukraine. Get the hell out of here. But the West, the press is so corrupt. I mean, if Russia did that to Ukrainians, it would be front page news. Oh, because they were killing Russians, it's okay. We don't look that direction. But look, the Russian Empire was included Kiev. In fact, Khrushchev was in charge of rebuilding Kiev after World War II. Brezhnev, his successor, was born there in the Donbass. Khrushchev grew up there. I mean, he lived on the border. So the Cuban Missile Crisis, we should say, was really Ukrainians, or was it Russia? This is the problem. I mean, it's you have ethnic differences throughout the whole region, and the propaganda. I have seen the internal memos from NATO. They were concerned that all this money was going to climate change, and they weren't getting any. All right, and so they were basically saying that how do we remain relevant? And they can only remain relevant by saying Russia wants to invade Europe. There is nothing there. They have no natural resources, no energy, no gold. What are you going to get out of it? You're going to walk into France and they're going to say, "Oh, okay, good. You're going to pay our pensions now?" There's nothing there. And look, Putin's been there since '99. If he wanted to take Europe, I think he would have done it a lot sooner. Most of this crap is there's a lot of hatred, particularly in the Baltics, Estonia, this is just what goes on. I mean, you're not going to get rid of it. Yugoslavia broke up. I mean, I was called into the government before it broke. And they said, they killed 600 of us and threw us in a common grave. And I thought I missed something on the news. I said, "Oh my God." I said, "When did this happen?" "Oh, about 700 years ago." It breaks up. And this is like what I'm seeing in Canada too. It's Marxism, but at the state level. Instead of taking money from you and giving it to somebody else who has less, this is at the state level. So you take Yugoslavia. Croatia had the sea. They were more prosperous than Serbia. Okay, so they were the economic powerhouse, paying transferring assets to the poor regions of Yugoslavia. So they feel they're being overtaxed, they're not being sharing in the wealth. And I see the same thing is happening in Canada. You take Alberta, if you remove Alberta from Canada, it's a third world country.
Mm.
They have all the cattle, energy, all this stuff. What does the rest of it have? Nothing. I just got back from Alberta, and the polls right now are saying that 40% of the people are in favor of separating from Canada. And then the little stuff you hear that, the Canadian flag really doesn't represent us. Why? Because maple trees only grow in the East. They don't grow out here.
And what's the remaining 60%? Do you know? Like, is it 60% opposed, or is it like a mix between opposed and not sure?
I think it's largely what you would call more of the silent minority. I don't see any real, no, we have to stay vehemently. No, you don't see that. And look, I'm about to do a report on how countries separate. And when you really dig into the research, it's very fascinating.
Interesting.
Revolutions, things of this nature, always take place with minorities, not majority. Even in the United States, at most, it was 40% were in favor of revolution. Georgia even issued currency backed by assets confiscated from loyalists to the king. But I've looked at every revolution, separatist movement. There isn't one that even reached 50%. Most tend to be 10, 15. Even Russia Revolution, the Cultural Revolution in China, they never like 60, 70% of the people in favor.
Yeah.
It's never that way. So the rest you get, or I would say, is like the silent majority.
Mm-hmm.
They don't step up. They're not active for it or against it. And they go, I don't know, I'm just going along with the flow or something. But it's fascinating when I looked at all this stuff to say, okay, is there a certain level percentage that makes it all pop? And you can't. It's popped at different levels. I mean, if you take the civil rights movement in the United States, what percent of the population was really involved? Maximum 2%.
Yeah, there's something called the cooperation factor, I believe is the correct term. And it basically states that when multiple individuals cooperate with each other, it's kind of like it's a 2 to the nth power function. So 2 individuals cooperating with each other is 2 to the second power, which is 4 times more effective than than one individual. When 3 individuals cooperate with each other, it's 2 to the third power. It's 8 times more effective than one individual. So it scales up multiplicatively in a way where if you have even a small committed minority that is hell bent on revolution or secession or what have you, they will get it done because they're all on the same page. Whereas the rest of the majority is not. They're just kind of out there in their own space doing what they're going to do.
Yeah, and these things are also contagions, and that's what I was saying about I see this running around the world. The American Revolution, Washington's inaugurated March 4th, 1789. Bastille Day in France is July 14th. You have the Roman Revolution against their king, and Roman Republic is born 509 BC. Within 6 months, Athens is overthrowing its tyrants, and democracy is born. You see these things, even Tiananmen Square. It was, I think, about 26 months or 26 weeks or so between that and then the fall of the Berlin Wall. So I don't know. Maybe the way to explain it is that, oh, look at what they did. That's a good idea. I don't, but they definitely are contagions. And that's what we're seeing here. You're seeing like this war with Ukraine, and then Middle East is starting to pick up. Pakistan is picking up. It just seems to be a contagion, like a flu or something. It's like people, yeah, those Pakistanis, they've done this to us for a long time. Let's get their ass or something.
Yeah, what's the deal with that? Is it? It seems like they've reached a ceasefire deal. Is it over for now, or do you anticipate it flaring up back up again?
Probably still flaring up. I was there in 2019, and they asked me about confrontation. I was in Mumbai, and I said, "Look, the computer says 2025," and it was right on schedule. It's just
accurate.
These things just take a certain amount of time, and the problem there is you have Hindu versus Islam. So these are not things that are negotiable. Same thing in the Middle East. You have Iran, which is Shiite, Saudi Arabia being Sunni. One is the church should lead the state, the other one no. You have in Christianity, Protestants versus Catholics. You go to England and they still call Catholics papes, and that goes back to 1649 in the Civil War. It's that's basically it. It's even we had when Andrew Jackson shut down the Bank of New York or the Bank of the United States. He set off a banking panic. Every bank started issuing their own money because you no longer had a central bank. That ended up with the Panic of 1837. And then states were trying to protect the banks and bailing them out, and they went into default. So it's called the hard times of the 1840s. Simultaneously, that's when the Irish were coming over because of the famines and stuff like that. And there were actually gun battles in 1844 on the streets of Philadelphia. But we still have terms that somebody's violent, always a hooligan, which was an Irish last name.
Oh, interesting.
So you get a lot of these things that are the one thing, and this is also the problem in Europe, where all of a sudden it's shifting to the right. You're seeing when AfD started, they're a bunch of Nazis, whatever. Now they're number one party. Why? Because you let in all these migrants. First of all, they were of a different culture. They weren't interested in assimilating. And there was over 1,000 girls were raped on a New Year's Eve in Germany. And then Merkel said, don't change the documents, don't call it rape, make it assault. They put a guy in England in prison for 22 months. He said, I'm tired of my money going to these illegal aliens who rape our children. They put him in jail for 22 months. Oh, that's a hate crime. But you can't allow migration to come in simultaneously when you're in an economic decline. Because then they compete for jobs. Oh, he took my job because he's willing to work for $2 less than the other guy. And this is like that's why they were after the Irish. And it was called the nativist movement. If you weren't native to the United States, you were one of them. So it wasn't necessarily, it's why when I met with the EU and trying to, create the euro back then, I said, you don't understand what made America great. I said, it was discrimination. They said, oh, how can you say that? I said, because it was fair. Whoever was last off the boat was discriminated against until they spoke English. I said, should we ask American today, what are you? Oh, I'm half Irish, half German, or whatever. Everybody intermarried. I said, you don't see that here in Europe. I mean, sure, there's some exceptions or whatever, but you talk to somebody, I'm half Italian, I'm half German, I'm half this or whatever. You don't see that in Europe. It's the language that keeps them apart.
So where do you, So where do you see the Ukraine conflict going? Is it essentially now Europe's, thing to deal with? Is the United States fully going to back out of being a party of this war? Where do you see this escalating to? I mean, you and I were just talking about, the Coke bag that was seen on the train ride between Macron and Starmer and the German head as well. So they've got some interesting leadership over there. But what's your view on where Ukraine war is going?
Well, I knew the journalist that Zelensky most likely killed, Lira, and he was saying that Zelensky was a cokehead years before. I mean, there were even pictures that he was so high on drugs that he put his pants on backwards, and his flies, in the back. And they said, what is that, for easy gay sex or something, or what? Or is he just, out of his mind? But how can you put your pants on backwards? I don't think I've ever done that in my life. And then go out in public and people are taking pictures of you. I mean, it's
you look at Zelensky's past. I mean, he wasn't just a comedian; he was doing some really out there skits. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, no, look, you can look on my site. I have videos of him when he was a comedian, standing on stage, bragging about confiscating assets from Russians and Jews. He was like Soros. He married a Christian girl. His children are baptized. And my Jewish friends in Israel say he's no Jew. He was a neo-Nazi. Played right along with it, the same as Soros did. I mean, the 60-minute interview with Soros was like, don't you feel remorse? You were helping the Nazis confiscate assets from Jews. He said, no. Look, this is basically it. I mean, he's just a puppet. He pretended he was part of the neo-Nazis, making jokes about it before, because they were very anti-Jewish. So he pretended to be Christian. And he only became Jewish after becoming president, to say, see, I'm Jewish, so I couldn't have been one of the neo-Nazis, which is total bullshit. I mean, I've got clips of him, making jokes about confiscating assets from Russians and Jews. I don't think a Jew would basically be doing that. But, like I said, he married a Christian girl and his children are baptized. Didn't play the Jewish card before. But look, Ukraine, unless they surrender to Donbass, I don't see any solution. This is just hatred that is so systemic. As I've said, I mean, we had an employee, two in Ukraine, one in Donetsk and one in Kiev. We had a conference in Greece. The one from Kiev refused to return home the quickest way because the plane stopped in Moscow. I said, it's only like an hour, between flights. No. And you couldn't talk to them. I said, do you realize it was not a Russian that stole all the food from Ukraine? Mm-hmm. It was a Ukrainian. And they don't want to hear that.
If you're looking for great deals on gold and silver coins and bars from a company that you can trust, then you've got to check out the good folks over at Pimbex. This year, I've really gotten to know these guys, and all I can say is you're not going to deal with a better group of people. They're a family-owned gold and silver online bullion company offering the essentials and more at industry-leading prices while always providing first-class top-tier service. That's PIMBEX.com. And if you're looking to convert some or all of your retirement account into real gold and silver, give Pimbex a call. They'll help explain the process and get you started on the right path. Your support at Pimbex also helps support the channel. So reach out to Pimbex today. You won't be disappointed. And make sure to tell them Danny sent you.
Stalin wasn't even a Russian. He was from Georgia. And his right-hand man was Kaganovich, who was a Jew from Kiev. And objective people believe that he told Stalin to steal all the food from Ukraine as retribution for what they did to the Jews. That's what I mean. The hatred over there is just so every which way you turn, somebody hates somebody else for something else. It's I've been in Athens when Merkel was refusing to help Greek banks. And they're protesting the Germans walking down the streets all dressed as Nazis. Things don't fade away over there.
If someone's trying to bug out, like to avoid World War III, is there anywhere on the earth that's not going to be embroiled in war or conflict? It seems like again, like you said, all these old feuds are boiling back up into the surface. Is there anywhere in the world where it's kind of World War free?
Probably South America, but I am talking to people in Congress who are who are close to Trump, and I've been arguing, look, you got to get the hell out of NATO. They're going to create a false flag to try and get the United States in under Article 5. And the feedback, you're right, we got to get out of NATO, which is interesting.
So it's real. So the thing we're seeing about Trump wanting to get out of NATO is real. It's not just theater.
No, I mean, even he said that before. And Jamie Dimon, when he was at Davos, I was surprised. You can look up his speech. He says Trump was right. Get the hell out of NATO.
I see.
NATO was formed when there was the Warsaw Pact. Okay, it was to defend against communism. Khrushchev said, we will bury you, because it was not an economic thing that, you got assets we want. It was more of a economic religion of Marxism. We will bury you because communism is better than capitalism. It was almost like a cult religion type thing.
Yeah.
And so when he said that, that's where it was coming from. Not that you've got some, trinkets that we want. So I think that is Russia has no interest in going into Europe. What the hell do they have? There's no oil. There's no assets. There's nothing. Okay. The best he's going to get is walking into France and they're going to say, you're going to pay our pensions. We don't want to occupy Russia. We don't want to go in and occupy China. China doesn't want to come here. Occupying another country for what? If you're getting something out of it, it's one thing, but just to suppress people, it's an endless game, and it never works historically. You always get somebody trying to get you, stab you in the back, assassinate you, or whatever. That's how World War I happened. Serbian basically killed the Archduke, because the Archduke was of Austria-Hungary, had the Balkans. You can't do this. Even when Yugoslavia broke up, that's what Ukraine should be, like that. It broke up, and you drew the lines after they stopped all the fighting. Serbia, Croatia, Montenegro, it all became ethnic. They divided according to their ethnic cultures. That's the same thing. Look, in Canada, I mean, if I was just up there. I said, if you did what Zelensky did to the Donbass, you'd have a civil war here. He outlawed their language, outlawed their religion, ordered them to speak, Ukrainian, changed Christmas from Orthodox to December 25th. I said, go ahead, try and tell Quebec you can't speak French anymore. What's going to happen? Or if the United States said we're going to outlaw Spanish. You can't do this kind of stuff. So I don't, this is just, and Ukraine is nothing more than a territorial grab, and it is instigated by NATO. Victoria Nuland was there at Maidan handing out sandwiches. You can look, John McCain was on the stage there at Maidan. Overthrow your government, America's with you. Can you imagine if Putin did that on the steps of the Capitol building in Washington? Overthrow your government, we're with you. I mean, the audacity of that is just amazing. But they're wrong, we're right, you see. Look, I know some of these neocons. I've been to dinner with them. Bill Crystal even spoke at one of our conferences. I can't explain it. They just hate Russia. And all I could say is that they were brainwashed when we were all kids or something, having to hide underneath their desks in the 50s or something. You can also look online and on YouTube, Robert McNamara. He did his apology before he died. He says, we were wrong on Vietnam. We thought Russia was involved. It was just a civil war. Nice. 58,000 Americans died because you were wrong. Okay. How many millions of other people died? All because you hate Russians. Why? Yes. Okay. They used to be communists. I was in Washington, because I got called in by the Reagan administration. And I can tell you when Gorbachev made his speech, Reagan wanted to go meet him. He thought something happened here. And the neocons couldn't call him a communist anymore because communism failed. So they said, you can just never trust a Russian. Reagan said, take it, shove it, I'm going. So these people, it does not matter. If they were here on the streets and they said that and they weren't a politician against somebody else, it would be hate crime. They get 20 years in prison for the shit they say. But they just hate Russians. You had Kalis, the former prime minister of Estonia, now she's the head of security or something for the EU, has had the audacity to come out and actually say that that Russia's too big and it should be broken up. What if Putin said that about Europe or the United States? Oh, it's too big; it should be broken up.
Yeah, I mean, who are they to dictate how big?
Exactly.
Yeah. So I want to take us to, because you and I were talking about gold before we hit record. I want to get your thoughts on the gold price because it is related to the geopolitics.
Oh yeah,
it seems. I mean, gold's been rallying for over a year and a half, and over the last year and a half, things have been edging to the precipice, both in Eastern Europe and in West Asia, and now in India, Pakistan, like you mentioned too. But now gold's getting a little bit of a sell-off, and I'll let you explain why you think that is. Go ahead, Marty.
Largely because gold does not respond to inflation. That's nonsense. It peaked at 875 in 1980. National debt went up, inflation went up, and gold went down for 19 years. That's always been a sales job by bullion dealers from the 70s. Bretton Woods failed and all this stuff. Even then, they got it wrong. Oil went up because of OPEC, and the dollar went up. So then that created the bullshit. Oh, the dollar rose. It's not backed by gold. It's oil now. It's petrodollar. I mean, look, what backs the dollar or any currency is the people. All right. It's the productivity of a nation. So Adam Smith defined this, back in the 1776 in his Wealth of Nations. He was arguing against the French physiocrats who said, oh, wealth is agriculture. So if you believe that agriculture is wealth, then let's say you're a blacksmith. You make the shoes for the horse or a saddle. You're a parasite because only the farmer's creating wealth. You're living off that wealth. This was their view. Okay. And Smith basically said, no, you're wrong. If you're a blacksmith and you're in England and you make a saddle and you sell it to somebody in France, you come back with the same amount of gold as a farmer. The wealth of a nation is not restricted to something like that. And it's not restricted to gold or anything else. I mean, look, Germany rose from the ashes, as did Japan after World War II, without gold. Why? It's productivity. All right. And the stark example you have to get through to understand world finance. The United States, out of every dollar that a consumer in the entire world spends, 25% comes from America. What does that mean? It means Germany's got to sell its BMWs to us. Toyota's got to sell its cars to America. All right. And I've consulted all these major multinational companies. You have to price the product in the currency of the nation you're selling it to. Okay. You can't, put a Toyota, oh, the price is 200,000 yen. And consumers going, what the hell is that? It's got to be priced in dollars. All right. So you have to take the dollars and bring it home. So all this bullshit, all the de-dollarization, I mean, people don't understand. I don't give a shit what anybody says. U.S. is the number one economy because it's a consumer-based economy. China has looked at this. They've looked at the German European model. They are still working off of the old mercantile stuff from the 1800s. We just sell stuff. We bring the gold home. All right. The total consumer spending for all of Europe now, out of $10 is $1.29. That's it. They're pathetic. You can also look up Germany, fine, is 25% of the GDP of Europe. What is the average net worth of a German? It's less than that of an Italian. Why? Because they keep their taxes very high. They're afraid of inflation. So they suppress their own people for austerity. Gold rises. Geopolitical issues. All right. 1976, gold was $100. All right. It fell from 200 in 1974. It got up to 200. I was in the business. I remember what everybody was saying. Oh, America's going to be legal to be, Americans will be allowed to buy gold. January 1st, 1975. So they took gold up to $200. I said, I never got a call from anybody once. You could always buy gold before in coin form. Legally, 1975, you could now trade futures or buy a bar of gold. But you could always buy $20 gold pieces or Mexican 50 pesos or whatever. And a lot of countries issued restrikes. As long as the coin was dated 47 or before, you were allowed to have it. So Austria, Hungary, they issued coins dated 1908. You can look them up. They're just restrikes. So they can legally sell them here. So Britain didn't do that with the sovereigns, and South Africa didn't do that with the Krugerrands. Austria, Hungary, they did. So did Mexico. Mexico, 50 pesos. They stopped the date at 1947. Didn't matter when they struck it. Also, they could sell it to Americans. So gold fell from that 200 when nobody showed up to buy the gold. Europeans had, blown it up. Oh, gold's going to go $1,000. Every American's going to buy gold. Didn't happen. So it fell from 200 down to 176. It finally rose back to 400 by December 79. But it went from 400 to 875 in the last 6 weeks. That's when Russia invaded Afghanistan. All right. Then after that, declined for 19 years into 1999. National debt went up, inflation went up, dollar went down, didn't matter. All right. It starts going up, and what you've seen recently with the strong rally is all geopolitical.
Mm-hmm.
Why BRICS, when they took Russia out of the SWIFT system, that was a red flag to everybody else. So, and you had Blinken, complete idiot, threatening China. Oh, if you help Russia, we'll do the same to you. Really, you stupid ass, China said, oh, okay, fine. So they joined BRICS. India goes on. Because you had the Biden administration as arrogant as you possibly could get. And they were just a bunch of dumbasses. They used the SWIFT system as a weapon. And when Russia went into Crimea in 2014, Obama attempted that. He went to SWIFT, wanted them to have them removed out. They refused. They said, you're not going to turn this into a weapon. So what did they do? They replaced the head of SWIFT in 2019. And he's like a dog on a leash. Oh, okay, whatever you want me to do, let me know. So now you've divided the world economy. You have the BRICS system and you have SWIFT. So gold has risen. Central banks have been buying it. Look, I advise a lot of them. They're not buying it. They're not speculators. Oh, gee, if we buy this, we'll make an extra $100. It will go up. They don't give a shit. It could go down. That's not the issue. The issue is that it's neutral. All right. With all this talk of war, and China had 10% of the U.S. national debt, and you had this numbnut Blinken threatening China. Okay. Let's say we go to war. Will they pay that debt? No way. They will default. That's what they always do in wars. France is in its fifth republic. Did they ever pay off the debt of the last one? Never. All right. You can even look at the American Constitution. It says we will honor the debts of the Continental Congress. They never did. You can buy Continental currency on eBay. They never redeemed it. There's only one country that ever paid off its debt, and that was Romania. That was it. So this is 1931, sovereign debt default, which really wiped out some 9,000 banks in the United States and really made the Great Depression so great. All of Europe defaulted. Britain suspended its gold standard, wouldn't pay debt, interest on debts. Canada defaulted. So let me see. I should buy government bonds. Oh, AAA. Yeah, right. It's the worst thing you can possibly have. So we've been telling all our clients, mainly with the main gold reserves and stuff that they've had, they've been moving it to the United States. Why? Because you have all these cokeheads over there talking about war. As soon as war starts, what do? Capital controls. You never get any money out. Just look at World War I. They shut down all the exchanges.
So are we to take this this gold sell-off as a signal that peace is becoming more attainable? Is that really the case?
I don't think it is long term, but yes, short term. You have all this. They're supposed to meet in Istanbul, tomorrow, on the 15th. Talking about maybe a ceasefire in Pakistan. Iran doesn't necessarily really want a full-scale war with the United States. They know they would get their ass kicked. But the economics going forward, as you know, when they were creating the euro, they came to me. I sat down. I said, this is how we create a currency. And everything they said to sell the euro was total bullshit. Oh, we'll all pay the same interest rates. We'll eliminate the volatility in foreign exchange. All of that was possible only if you consolidated the debt and created a national debt for Europe. As a fund manager, like a 10 billion, I can pick up the phone and say, buy me 10 billion US treasuries. I can't do that with Europe. I still have to say, who do I want? Germany? Do I want France? Do I want Italy? Helmut Kohl was Chancellor of Germany at the time, and he admitted before he died he acted like a dictator, and he said that had he let the German people vote on joining the euro, he would have lost 7-3. So just as we see all these elites, they do whatever the hell they want to do. We don't live in a democracy. He took Germany into the euro without a public vote. He knew the Germans were against debt because of the hyperinflation and all that stuff. So no consolidation of the debt. I warned them back then. I said, this is going to blow up. You cannot do it this way. I was told, this is 1998, we just have to get the euro through so they can create their bureaucracy. We'll worry about the debt problem later. Here we are, 2025, basically 26 years later, still separate debts. Now, what's the problem? When Greece got into trouble in 2010, I've been a trader most of my life. What happens? Everyone made a lot of money shorting Greece. Who's next? Oh, Spain. Boom, let's go over there. All right. It's a contagion. So the problem with the euro, and this is why it's never been able to compete with the dollar, is that you still have all these individual debts. And if one goes down, like Greece did in 2010, you set off a contagion and it will ripple through all of them. Just read Herbert Hoover's memoirs, 1931. That's how the sovereign default took place. Germany couldn't meet the payments, and So the proposal was, everybody proposed except for France, that Germany and Austria should reunite to be able to economically survive. The French started shorting the Austrian bonds. Germany tried to support Austria. The French turned and started shorting the German bonds. It was World War II in the financial markets. The Brits came in to try and support Germany. The French turned on the Brits. It was financial war in the bond markets, and everybody went down. And that was 1931. And let me explain something here that a lot of people don't seem to understand. You can take the stock market down 90%. Big deal. It doesn't create a depression. Why? Because not everybody's in it. You take the debt market down, you're wiping out banks. They have to use it as reserve currency. You're talking about pension funds. You take a debt market down and you create a depression. 2007 to 2009. Why was it so bad? Because it was the real estate market. All right. Real estate affects everybody, even if you're renting. All right. Most people, and all the economic studies show, if you got a house, you paid $100,000 and now it's worth $1 million. To you, that's your savings account. So you spend freely. You don't have to worry about it. All right. If that house now drops to $500,000, oh shit, I lost a lot of money. You don't spend so freely. So recessions take place when you get a debt market or real estate crash. Okay. That's far more important than the stock market. Stock market doesn't impact absolutely everybody.
Right.
There was a panic 1903. It's actually called by historians the rich man's panic. This is what you have to look at. And when you understand how everybody's really connected, it's much more serious. And so take the debt market is the worst.
Yeah. Well, why are yields rising right now? What do you make of that?
Because of war.
But gold's giving a counter signal to that.
Right now, gold's backing off a little bit. But as you get more and more governments with this, are we going into war? Are we not going to war? Mm-hmm. You go into war, they default. You want higher interest rates. I know a lot of people hate the central bank, the Fed. During World War II, they were ordered to put a cap on interest rates. And if the bond market, the free markets went above that, they were to buy it. So it was quantitative easing in the opposite way, to try and keep interest rates down so the government didn't spend so much for war. Then in 1951, Korean War starting, and they told the Fed to do it again. And the Fed said enough is enough, and they refused. It made front page news and everything. It broke with White House, the Treasury said, screw you, we're independent, and we're not doing this. Most people don't realize, but the Fed was absolutely brilliantly originally created. If we were still under that system, you wouldn't have all these crazy people wanting to shut down the central bank. Originally, what it was that the term lender of last resorts. Okay, what did that really mean? It meant it was copying what J.P. Morgan did in the panic of 2007. A couple banks were in trouble. He got all the other banks. If we don't bail this out, it's going to be a contagion. He understood how markets moved, and they're going to come get us. So they listened to him. They band together, and they bailed out the weak banks to stem the panic, and it worked. So the Fed was originally designed on what he did. That's why the banks owned it. It was supposed to be a bailout for the banks. All right. And to stimulate the economy, they bought corporate paper, not government. So that's where this lender of last resorts comes from. If a bank was tight and was not lending money to corporations, the corporate could issue 90-day paper. The Fed would buy it. All right. So therefore, the company didn't have to lay off people. So it was brilliantly designed. Then World War I came, and Congress told the Fed, look, we're going to have to issue debt for World War I and order them not to buy corporate paper, you buy ours. They never put it back after that. Then you had FDR come, and the Act of 1935 completely upended the Fed. All right. And he moved it all to Washington. We ended up with one interest rate. You can look at like newspaper.com if you want, or something like that. Just look at a newspaper from the 1920s. Why do we have 13 branches? Because there are regional capital flows. The panic in 1906 was San Francisco, or 07, was because of the earthquake in San Francisco in 1906. So the insurance companies are in the east. The money goes to the west. And then there's a shortage of cash on the east, and banks fail. So they set up 13 branches. And if you look at the newspapers back then, you'll see each branch was independent. So if there was a shortage of cash in St. Louis, they would raise rates there to 4% to attract money from elsewhere, and others were at 3%. So it was a regional capital flow model. All that was thrown out the window when FDR was trying to get through his socialistic ideas. One policy fits all. Mm-hmm. And so the Fed today isn't anything close to what it was originally designed to do.
Gotcha. So if I can summarize everything that we've talked about, gold appears to be signaling short-term peace, but the bond yields are providing a counter signal to that yes, we may have short-term peace, but further down the line, the dangers of World War III still exist and are getting greater as time moves forward. Where does that leave? Where does that leave the trade war stuff, more specifically with the U.S. and China? What kind of deal do you suspect we arrive at once all the dust is settled between Trump and Xi Jinping?
I think it would be the only thing I disagree with him on was that his negotiating standard being public with Europe is one thing, or Canada. You can't do that in Asia. They have, saving face. For example, they still call it's the Communist Party, although they're not communists. If they change the name, then they'd have to take Mao's picture down and said he was wrong. So it's. I mean, everybody's private ownership, whatever. It's not communist, but they keep the name because they don't want to have to publicly admit we were wrong. So you can't do that. And I think there have been some improvements in the negotiation with China that is not so public. So they're making accommodations. And that's the only way to deal with Asia. You can't do the same thing. Canada, I can tell you a lot of Canadians have told me they should have sent a thank you letter to Trump because they had no idea that every province viewed itself as a country and put tariffs on the other provinces. Canada is still a Marxist delight. If you're a lawyer in Nova Scotia, you're not allowed to practice in Newfoundland. Whereas in the United States, if you're a lawyer, and you get admitted to a federal court, it's nationwide. Um, our states are not allowed to put tariffs on other states or block the free movement of capital or anything. In Canada, they do. Europe is, again, the same sort of thing. It's, the French have been more obstinate. Like they don't want anybody white sparkling wine has always been called champagne. Okay. And they tried to change the definition. Oh, if it's not from Champagne in France, you can't call it champagne, although it's the same thing. And it was French that migrated to the United States and grew the same grapes in California. So it's, is there much more? That's why I say the consumer is $1.29 out of 10 over there, because they oppress their people tremendously. Spain just put in, you're seeing that they want to eliminate cash. Spain, you can't take, I think it's 3,000 euros or something. You need permission from the government to even take 3,000 out of the bank account. They want to eliminate cash. The ECB is pushing forward with its central bank digital currency. You had the Fed here say they are not going to, and you had Trump said no. But it's constitutional. All right. They would if they could have. But the difference here is they couldn't look at your account without a search warrant. In Europe, they don't have those protections. In Europe, they cancel the paper currency routinely. This is why the U.S. dollar is also the reserve currency. 70% of the paper dollars are outside the country because they know they can trust the United States. We don't cancel our currency. A $5 bill from 1860 is still worth $5, although it's worth a lot more to a collector. But France, good luck. India canceled its high denominations. Canada canceled its $1,000 notes and $500 notes last year. They canceled the currency to get these no good, worthless, rich people. You got 100,000 in a safety deposit box, and they're canceling the currency. It forces you to come out. Where'd you get this? Did you pay your taxes? This is what it's all about. Even in the United States, if you look at the fine print of a safety deposit box, you're not allowed to put cash in there. It's now considered money laundering. What's the laundering? You're hiding it from the government. They have to know what you have. This is all part of why the dollar is the reserve currency, and everybody, the dollar is going to crash. Trust me, the dollar will be the very last one to crash. Japan's in terrible shape. Europe is not going to survive. And once you get here, what I explained to them was pretty common knowledge. We have 50 states. Yes, we have a single currency, but they all pay different interest rates according to the credit rating. If California goes down, it doesn't hurt U.S. Treasuries. All right, because we have a national debt. Europe does not. If France goes down, they're going to start selling bunds in Italy and everything else. There's no place to move to. Mm-hmm. If California went down, they could shift to treasuries. Can't do that in Europe. If you're a trader, just look at the spreads. They buy the bunds and they sell some, Italy or whatever if they're in trouble. or Greece or whatever it was. The volatility that once existed in the currency was only moved to the bond markets. That's it. It shifted.
I see.
They never designed it properly. And now their problem is only one nation has to get in trouble, and they create a contagion to everybody else. If California went down, you're going to start looking at all the other state debts.
Mm-hmm.
All right, you won't necessarily look at the feds, but you'll look at the states. That's what will happen in Europe. And they just, Kohl wouldn't allow them consolidate because he knew the Germans wouldn't join. And I was told point blank, we just have to get the euro through so we get our bureaucracy. That's all they care about. They got their jobs for life. And then they designed it to be against any democratic process. Look at Ursula. She's never stood for election. Christine Lagarde. They were on Klaus Schwab's board.
Oh, really?
Oh,
von der Leyen was on Klaus Schwab's board?
Oh, yeah. It's the head of the IMF from Klaus Schwab's board. Look at their backgrounds. I know.
What do you think of this new guy, this new chairman of the World Economic Forum? He has one eye, and do you know anything about him?
Other than it's the same bullshit. It's basically they staged the coup against Klaus, and it was a coup. Oh yeah, I mean, look, I have very good sources inside WEF.
Okay.
Their attendance in January was down some 20 to 25%, and his "you'll own nothing and be happy" bullshit has caused a lot of people to question what's going on, and they hate the WEF. So they decided to jettison him after they lost so much attendance, because that's their lifeblood. Mm-hmm. They sell these tickets. I think it's 25 grand or something to attend or whatever. And these people pay it in order to rub shoulders with some political leader or whatever. They're selling. It's just influence. I think the economist, I think Rakoff, even made a joke. He says whatever they forecast at WF never works. They never been right once. Even when Nigel Farage came to us, he spoke at our 2019 conference. He said, "Of course I'm here. They're the alternative to Davos." Klaus and I we started our World Economic Conference in 1985. Klaus started his first conference, Davos, in 1987. Marcus Vetter, who did the movie on me, after that, he has a movie on him, put out the Forum. It's just been back and forth constantly. Whatever we do, he tends to. His Great Reset is our 2032. He's just trying to push it in his direction. And I'm saying, look, hopefully we go back to an actual democracy this time.
Yeah. But doesn't it seem like they've completely lost influence? I mean, they used to be highly influential, like
yes,
back in 2020, 2021, 2022. But recently, like the last couple of years, it seems like they've just taken a back seat to everything. Like they're no longer like it feels like they've just been defanged. Like, is the Great Reset thing still an agenda item that we should be concerned about? Or
no? Look, what that was that you can look on YouTube. I did a video. It's called "The Solution: How to Get Out of This for Governments." It's basically a debt to equity swap to get rid of the debts, etc. I did that because Schwab's Great Reset is you'll own nothing, be happy, is governments will default.
Mm-hmm.
But for governments to default, we have to pretend we're doing it for you.
Yeah.
So I care about your debt. So we're going to, you'll own nothing and be happy. But it's basically because they default, there goes your pensions and everything else. And trying to make it sound like we're doing this for you. It's look, I know Klaus. He even had a bust of Lenin on the shelf in his office. The WEF got rid of him. It was a coup because, as you said, they're losing influence, they're losing attendance, and that's really what this is about. It's just the same old, jalopy, just with a new paint job.
Yeah, because it does seem like the elite class has moved on past them. Like they just feel like old news now.
They've just gotten so much bad press. And, you can even look on our site. They even put out a video. Tell us how good it was to be locked down. Wasn't nice and quiet, really? So it's crazy. But I mean, this is basically, Schwab was an academic, and most of these academics are just Marxists. Oh, equality, everybody be happy, has never worked once because we're not equal in talent. We're equal in rights, yes, but not in talent.
Yeah,
I don't think you want to pay me $30 million to go throw the football at the Super Bowl.
Yeah, they atomize everyone. They atomize everyone in a way that we're all just interchangeable, discrete units that are just we can just.
No, it's true. It's I mean, this it's an academic Marxist view, and
like you said, they're losing credibility. I think this is a great spot to close things out here. A positive note, Marty. Where can people find you if they want to hear and see more?
You go to armstrongeconomics.com. We keep it as an open forum. So we don't sell advertising. You don't have to put your email in. It's open for everybody. We're not blocked anywhere in the world. You can China, Russia, everybody's open. I'm kind of, I'm glad about that. So
yeah, we'll have the link down below. So check it out, guys. If you got value out of this podcast, drop us a like and comment "Go Marty Go" in the comments section. If you disagree with anything, that's okay too. Just let me know what you disagreed on. I do read the comments. So drop me your thoughts down below. Also, if you'd like to support the channel, you can subscribe to the channel so you don't miss another episode. You also help us boost our videos and channel up in the algorithm by doing so. But if you want to support us monetarily, then we have a host of different and great products with some pretty decent discounts, some steep discounts in the description box as well. 10% off the Trends Journal from Gerald Celente, 1,000% off the Capital Sexploits newsletter, and a bunch of other cool stuff down in the description box down below. Supporting them supports myself and the channel. And check me out on Substack at capitalcosm.substack.com to become a paying member and get access to all of my stuff early, ad-free, and uncensored. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Marty, thank you for coming on, and I will see you all next time.
Thank you.